Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm doing something a little bit special. So I got a review copy of the Spire in Bloom and Moments in the Valley expansions for Earthborne Rangers, one of my favorite games recently. If you didn't see my top 20 solo list, this one made the cut. And these were kind of stealth drops, as much as that can be a thing in board games, in that they announced them and basically they were available for order the exact same day. Very cool. And they also announced 3 upcoming expansions, so things get even crazier. But yeah, they sent me these, and Spires in Bloom has new locations you can explore, and a new, not really campaign, but series of missions you can complete. And then Memories in the Valleys has kind of its own thing going on. So at first I thought I'd do a play, but Spire in Bloom is a little interesting in that you're not really supposed to start its campaign until you're a bit of a ways into the original Lore of the Valley campaign from the base game. But then it doesn't integrate with the Legacy of the Ancestors expansion campaign, which my character is already in. So it's just like a little bit weird to record something for this. So what I thought I'd do instead, hopefully this is useful, is talk through all of the expansions, everything you can currently buy for Earthborne Rangers, as well as my thoughts on what's coming up later. And I'm going to rank them on things I think are the least important or useful for people to buy, at least based on my taste. You might strongly disagree, up to the things that I think are most interesting to buy apart from the base game. I'm clearly not going to rank that. So hopefully this is interesting and useful. Now, before I get to the rankings of the release expansions, let's talk about the 3 that are coming. So these are all what's called Valley expansions. So Spire in Bloom adds more, as I'll mention when I get to it, to the central location on the map, Spire. These other 3 are supposed to do the same thing. The Shadow of the Storm expansion is supposed to add stuff beyond the northern edge of the map. Sky and Smoke, I think they said in the video, is going to add stuff to the western edge of the map. And then Into the Maw, the 3rd one, has you exploring inside of this creature that moves around the map. So it's kind of its own Final Fantasy VI, what was that dungeon called with Go-Go in it? But yeah, it's its own like little inside the sandworm dungeon to explore. And a lot of the thoughts I'll have on the Valley expansion will probably apply to those too. So there are 3 more things coming. They all sound really interesting, but let's get to the stuff that is actually released and I've explored so we can talk about things in detail. So at my number 6 ranking, the thing I think is the least important for people to buy is the Ranger Card Doubler expansion. So this is what it sounds like in the core version of the game. Each background, each specialty, kind of the classes you can build your deck from, comes with 2 copies of each card, which is the most an individual player can add to your deck. So if you're only playing solo, that's 100% more than you'll ever need. And even playing 2-player, you're probably not going to splash into things too much. But the Card Doubler gives you 2 more copies of every card, which can be helpful in 3- and 4-player games. Because even though a given set of players probably won't want to have more than 1 of each background, each specialty, the deck building in the game and the deck construction lets you pick 1 card from any set to splash into your deck. And sometimes there's very good ones, like ones that help you move more quickly on the map, which is, kind of the perennial issue with the game sometimes, the part that can be the most frustrating, just kind of grinding through travel. So the Card Doubler could be good for that, again, especially if you're going to play 3- or 4-player. And what I think makes the Card Doubler even more potentially useful is that all of the reward cards you can unlock in the game by doing special quests and accomplishments, those also only have 2 copies each. And these are the strongest, coolest cards in the game, the ones that really make up most of your deck in the late game especially, like my deck when I beat the Lore of the Valley campaign was more than half of these unlocked cards. So having more copies, especially again in a higher player count campaign, to add to your deck would certainly be a cool thing. But besides that, there is nothing new in the Ranger Card Doubler expansion, and if you're playing only solo or 2-player, except for the reward card limitation, I don't think there's that much reason to get it. But if you're playing 3- and 4-player and you just want to have more options for deck construction overall, it might be worth it to you. Next at number 5, I have one of the 2 recent expansions, Moments in the Valley. And this is just like the Moments in the Path expansion that they had released previously, in that you have these Moments cards that get shuffled into the Path deck when you move to a location, and instead of them going into play like the flora and fauna you find in the usual Path deck, instead they have an immediate little narrative event, and then you usually have some kind of choice or randomized effect that happens to the Rangers, and you move on. Now, I do like the Moments cards a lot, and actually the reason I like them the most, which is maybe not what they were going for, is that because you are shuffling these into the Path deck, and you shuffle more based on the number of Rangers, so like in a 4-player game, you would shuffle 4 of these each time you move into a location. And because they're quick, one-and-done little fun things, they don't get in your way. And that's what I like about them the best, because, again, the biggest complaint I have of Earthborne Rangers, which is, to be clear, a game I love, is that sometimes moving can kind of be grindy and a hassle. So when you draw one of these cards for your path draw, it means you're not drawing an enemy. It means you're not drawing an obstacle that's going to stop you from traveling. So even when the event is itself negative, they can kind of give your characters a breather and a quick little narrative thing to explore. It means the table gets less crowded with cards and activating effects in higher player count games. So I like these a lot overall. Now, the reason Moments in the Valley is my number 5 is because it's very limited in use right now. Currently, it interacts with Spire in Bloom. So if you're playing Lore of the Valley, the original game's campaign, and if you're playing with the Spire in Bloom content, where the Spire locations are expanded out, then when you move among those locations, you'll use these moment cards. That's going to be a pretty small portion of your overall playtime, so these cards won't come into play that often. And then the rest of the expansion has 8 cards for Shadow of the Storm, 8 for Sky and Smoke, 8 for Into the Maw, which don't exist yet, which can't be purchased yet. Now, they're definitely coming. They've announced the release dates. They're not going to be too long. I think all of them will be released within the next year. So if you buy this now and it's not too expensive, then you'll certainly get use out of it eventually. But at the moment, this is the least integrated thing in the game. It's going to show up barely at all, and again, only when you're using this one specific expansion. So that's why it's my number 5. Next, at number 4 is the Moments of the Path expansion, which is the previous one. It does the exact same thing, adding moments to the path deck, where you get these quick events to resolve and then move on. All the same pros and cons I already said about the previous one apply here. This one just ranks higher because it's more immediately usable. The Valley moments can be used every time you move anywhere in the entire Valley in the Lore of the Valley campaign, and then the other half of this, the Arcology moments, get used when you're doing the expansion, the Legacy of the Ancestors campaign, and you go underground. So if you only buy the base game, you're only going to use half of this moments expansion, so still a little bit limited, but this half will get used when you're moving anywhere in the entire Valley. Every location on the map. So they're going to come up a lot more often. They will provide that benefit of diluting the nastiness in the path deck more frequently. And if you get the Legacy of the Ancestors campaign, then you get double the use, and you're going to have a lot of cool stuff happening from these. Next to number 3 is Spire in Bloom, and this is one I'm going to dig into the most because it's new and a lot of you might not have actually seen what's in it yet. So what you get is a new valley map for the base campaign, and do notice that they are giving you more room for the north and such, but then you've got this inset map that replaces the smaller location of Spire from the beginning. Now Spire, instead of being 1 location, is 4 locations. And the rest of the expansion is a lot of cards. You've got new location cards for those locations. You've got a new weather card, which is cool, and when you play with the Spire and Bloom kind of campaign aspects in play, then this weather card will also pop up at certain times. This one's Wild Growth. It gets pollen put on it, and then sometimes you'll cough from the pollen and take some energy and fatigue loss. Not too amazing, but kind of cool. And according to the video they posted, each of these Valley expansions is going to have 1 new weather type. Then you get a new booklet with a whole bunch of new entries, which correspond mostly to these new missions connected to the little mini campaign in Spire and Bloom. And to be clear, this is a campaign that runs concurrent with the main game's Lore of the Valley campaign. Once you're doing Legacy of the Ancestors, again, this can't be used. You can't use that inset map. You can't have the extra Spire locations. But when you're doing Lore of the Valley, the Spire and Bloom campaign, which is a lot smaller and like kind of a more straightforward story, it's not as big and earth-shattering as the main campaign. But you can focus your efforts on this or this. As you're moving around, you're going to be able to accomplish stuff for Spire and Bloom, and it'll give you reasons to visit those new locations. So if you're playing Lore of the Valley for the first time, this is certainly going to have greater interest to you because it'll give you even more variety and more things to kind of pull your attention while you're exploring. But if you're like me and you already finished Lore of the Valley, you can just take that character and have them jump right into this adventure. They even give you an option for extra days if you've already gotten to 30 days and you haven't started this yet. And there's new missions, new things to explore. There's also an all-new terrain type called Thoroughfare that has you interacting with locals and nothing really too nasty, just like people annoying you. And that's used when you're moving from place to place. And they add some new NPCs and unique locations into play, including one that goes to Lone Tree Station, even if you're not playing with all the Spire locations, and a couple new Valley cards, one of which has its own mission, one of which lets you add in these adorable babies. Look at these, for all the major creatures in the game. And again, that goes in the regular Valley set, so even if you're not doing the Spire and Bloom content specifically, you can still use this in your regular game. And you get a bunch of reward cards related to the campaign and some of these new NPCs you can interact with and these new missions. And that's why this is my number 3. I think it's got more interesting content and more just narrative-focused content than the other stuff in the game. And that exploration and narrative is, I think, one of the strongest aspects of Earthborne Rangers. Now, one thing I was super concerned about, and I imagine some of you might be too, with all of these expansions, is that suddenly, I've said traveling is often the most annoying thing in the game. Suddenly, where before you would travel through one location to get by Spire, now you might have to go through 3 or 4. That doesn't seem great. That would make you have to travel more. And it still kind of does. The game doesn't completely fix this, but it does automatically have you put this back alley shortcut card into the path deck whenever you go to any of these new expanded locations. And if you complete this and also complete the location you're on, then you can move as though you're on any of those expanded locations. So you can go straight from Spire Crossing out of the Silverfin Docks to Greenbrier Knoll, for example, which in a sort of roundabout way that might take a little more time allows you to treat Spire as the original traveling option that it always was before. So it's not like a perfect fix. I think there still will be a bit more grinding in these locations, but there's also a lot to explore and a lot of fun stuff to do and characters to meet. Spire is a much safer option overall because you don't have like whatever the other terrain is next to it that you would have had to deal with in the past. So I don't think it's a perfect expansion, and again, some people might be in the middle of Legacy of the Ancestors like me, which means you couldn't even play it right now, but I still love the idea of it, and I think they've done a lot of things to make it not hurt too much to get this new content into the game. Next, at number 2, the second best expansion, for my taste at least, is the Stewards of the Valley expansion. And this is basically the more characters, more stuff for your decks expansion. Because this one gives you a 5th specialty, the Spirit Speaker, and a 5th background, the Tail Spinner, which just immediately gives you way more options, because remember, you can also splash into backgrounds and specialties when you make your character, even if they're not the main one you're taking. It also means if you have 4 players, you don't have to use the exact same backgrounds and specialty mixes every time. You can splash this in for a 5th option. But then on top of that, the expansion adds 4 new unique cards to every background and every specialty, so you have even more stuff to build your deck out initially. Although I will say this is not quite as cool as it seems as you get later into the lore of the Valley, and then of course the Legacy of the Ancestors. Because like I said, you're going to get so many reward cards to put into your deck that having more base card options that often aren't as strong as those is cool, but not like 100% necessary. But then another fun thing is that some of those new player cards have aspirations on them, which is character or class specific mini quests. And then if you complete those mini quests, you get to unlock reward cards just for you that are thematically tied to your class or background. So pretty dang cool, just to give a little bit more narrative and like a little bit more direction to distract you from your main quest when you're wandering around the valley. But my number 1 expansion for Earthborne Rangers, the thing that I think is the best value to get in the game, is the Legacy of the Ancestors campaign. Now, to be clear, this is a follow-up to the Lore of the Valley. If you're not playing the game enough to finish the initial campaign, then this one will immediately have less value to you. Although, as I noted in my first video on this one, they do have a like TLDR, I don't want to play the original campaign, I want to jump right in, kind of story summary thing, and they also boost you with free items right away, so you can jump right into this if you haven't played Lore of the Valley, although I wouldn't. The story in the Lore of the Valley campaign is great, and this one picks up right after it, although it kind of goes in a tangential direction. But yeah, for a big campaign narrative game, this is where you want to be. Because you get all new path cards, you get all new locations, you get all new missions, an entire new story, a ton of new reward cards. And by the way, for all of these things, they do give you 4 copies. You don't have to buy any kind of doubler. And an entirely new map to explore with multiple levels and new ways to traverse and kind of backtrack and get little shortcuts and things. Now, I'm still only halfway through Legacy of the Ancestors. I have not had time to finish it with my busy schedule, but so far it's great. It does jump in and kind of hit the ground running faster than Lore of the Valley does, so you don't have as much kind of downtime before the story really gets more serious. And I think it's awesome. So yeah, out of all the release expansions, definitely Legacy of the Ancestors. It's the most expensive, but that's because it has the most value and just awesome stuff in it. Definitely the one you should check out if you think you'll ever finish the core campaign. So there you go, everybody. Some information on what's available for Earthborne Rangers and a little bit of what might be coming, although I don't know any more than you all do. So I hope that was useful and interesting. Let me know in the comments if this was any good or if you'd rather me just get back to making playthroughs. But thanks for watching, everybody, and a special thank you to our biggest Patreon supporters, J. William F., Steve Wren, Pedro Lucas, Miles, KCW, Andrew R., and Chris C. We'll see you at the next stop.